These are stories where love meets betrayal. Stories that make you see life a little differently. I always believed that rain knows things about people, secrets, fears, the soft decay of promises we think will last forever. Maybe that's why, on the night everything in my life collapsed, the sky opened and cried with me. My name is Claire, and this is the story of how the man I loved broke me, and how the rain stitched me back together, piece by piece. It started on a Thursday evening, a quiet, gentle evening when nothing felt dangerous. The kind of evening when you think you're safe. I was sitting in our living room, listening to the rhythm of raindrops tapping against the glass. Their steady music always comforted me. Mark, my husband, said it made the house feel dull and sleepy, but I loved it. Rain never lies. People do. I remember glancing at the clock, 7:42 p.m. Mark was late again. He'd been late a lot during the last 2 months. Too often. Too easily explained. I told myself he was tired, stressed, working too much. But the truth was already whispering in the air around me, and I was too afraid to listen. I checked my phone. No message from him. Only a missed call from my sister earlier. She always worried too much, but that night, she had a reason. The door opened softly. Mark walked in, dripping rainwater across the floor. His hair was wet, his jacket unzipped, and he carried that kind of strange guilt in his shoulders, the kind that twists the posture of a man who's hiding another woman's perfume under the scent of rain. Late again, I said, gently. Not accusing, just tired. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Traffic, he said. His go-to excuse lately. Short, dull, thoughtless. The kind of excuse a man uses when the real story is not meant for you. I forced a smile. I didn't want to fight. Not yet. He kissed my cheek, lightly, distantly. His lips felt like someone else's. Dinner? I asked. Already ate, he said quickly. Too quickly. Rain whispered something at the window. Something I didn't want to hear. The next night, Mark said he had to work late again. But something inside me, something deep and instinctive, tightened like a warning. Maybe it was the way he looked at his phone, or the way he suddenly started using a password he never used before. Or maybe it was because when he said, "Don't wait up," he didn't meet my eyes. Rain was falling harder that evening, thick drops sliding down the glass like silent tears. And I felt it again, that quiet truth pressing against my skin. Something was wrong. I picked up my jacket, my keys, my courage. I drove slowly, following the familiar path to Mark's office. The streets shimmered with reflections, long silver lines stretching beneath the streetlights. Everything looked blurry, dreamlike, unreal. as if the night itself was trying to warn me about the reality I was about to enter. When I reached the office building, Mark's car wasn't in its usual spot, but his lights were off inside. The security guard told me Mark had left an hour earlier. My heart dropped. Free fall. Cold, sharp, irreversible. I sat in my car, listening to the rain, trying not to break. Then I saw it, across the street, near the old cafe, Mark's car, parked in the shadows, almost hidden. I stepped out silently. Rain soaked my hair, my clothes, my breath, but I didn't feel the cold, only the tremble in my chest. The cafe had windows fogged from warm lights inside. People laughing, talking, living lives that didn't hurt. There, in the corner, I saw him, Mark. And across from him sat a woman with long, dark hair. Young, beautiful, glowing with the energy of someone who believes the man across from her belongs to her alone. She touched his hand. He didn't pull away. He held her fingers gently, affectionately, tenderly, a way he hadn't touched me in months. My heart cracked, softly, quietly, like fragile glass under too much pressure. I didn't enter the cafe. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them. Instead, I watched. I let the truth sink in. I let the betrayal carve itself into my memory because I needed to see it. I needed to understand exactly what I was walking away from. When they left the cafe, laughing under the shared umbrella, I didn't follow. I'd seen enough. More than enough. I walked back to my car, sat in the darkness, and let the rain drown out every sound except my own heartbeat. I didn't confront Mark that night, or the next, or even the one after. Instead, I observed him, quietly, carefully, as if I were studying a stranger who lived in my house. And I saw everything I had refused to see before. The way he hid his phone when messages came. The way he showered immediately after coming home. The way he called me sweetheart with mechanical softness, as if repeating a line from a script he no longer believed in. The betrayal wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing that I was still trying to protect him from my pain. One evening, as rain tapped like fingertips on the window, I finally decided what to do. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry in front of him. I wasn't going to beg for an explanation he didn't deserve. I was going to reclaim myself. Quietly, elegantly, with the same softness rain uses when it dissolves mountains over centuries. My revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be precise and almost gentle, because sometimes the quietest revenge is simply letting someone lose you forever. The first step was to gather everything. Evidence, messages, photos, even bank statements that showed dinners he never had with me. I didn't do it out of pettiness. I did it because truth deserves to exist somewhere outside your own bruised heart. Then, I planned my exit. I found a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, nothing large, just a quiet place with big windows where I could hear the rain without interruption. I signed the lease, moved my essentials. No one knew, especially not Mark. The next step was the hardest one, telling him. But I didn't want a dramatic confrontation. I didn't want tears or apologies or excuses. I wanted silence, dignity, closure written in calm handwriting. So I wrote him a letter. Not a long one, just the truth. Soft, sharp, simple. And that evening, I made sure the rain was my witness. When Mark came home, shaking water from his hair, he didn't see anything unusual at first. Not the missing clothes, not the empty drawers, not the quiet echo of a life already gone. He saw the letter on the table. "Claire?" He called, his voice uncertain, uneasy. I stood near the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. I didn't turn around. "Read it," I said calmly. He hesitated, then opened the envelope. His breath caught when he saw the photos, the screenshots, the quiet truth he'd been hiding beneath layers of lies. "Claire, I can explain," he whispered. "No," I said softly. "Not anymore." He moved toward me, but the distance between us wasn't measured in steps. It was measured in everything he had broken. "Please," he said, "I made a mistake." "You made a choice," I replied, "and so did I." I picked up my keys. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "For once," I whispered, "let me leave with dignity." And I walked out, down the stairs, into the rain. The sky swallowed me gently, as if saying, "You did the right thing. Keep going." I didn't look back, not once, because some chapters deserve to end exactly where they began, under the rain, where truth finally finds its voice. The rain followed me like a silent companion as I left the life I had built for 11 years, a life that felt solid once, warm, predictable. But now, walking under the shimmering curtain of water, I felt strangely weightless. Freedom doesn't come loudly. It comes as a soft ache, a quiet courage, a breath you didn't realize you were holding for far too long. My car was parked down the street. I opened the door, sat behind the wheel, and let the rain blur everything outside. My hands were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from release. Leaving someone who betrayed you isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is leaving the person you used to be with them. I drove slowly, no destination urgency, no emotional panic, just a steady unraveling of the past. The city lights reflected on wet pavement, long, distorted trails like memories melting away. Everything around me looked softer, quieter, more forgiving. as if the world itself understood I needed gentleness tonight. When I reached my new apartment, the rain had softened into a delicate drizzle, a whisper instead of a storm. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt the beginning of something fragile and new. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and unfinished stories, bare walls, empty space, silence waiting to be filled. I set down my keys and closed the door behind me, and I swear, the moment the lock clicked, a piece of my soul settled into place. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood, breathing slowly, letting the reality sink in. I had done it. I had left, and I was still standing. The next morning, sunlight filtered weakly through the curtains, softened by the leftover storm clouds. The world outside was washed clean, glistening, renewed. I wondered if I could be the same. My phone buzzed. 8 missed calls from Mark. 4 messages, all variations of "please talk to me" and "don't do this." I stared at the screen for a moment, then turned the phone face down. Not out of cruelty, but because I wasn't ready to let his voice contaminate my fresh air. I made coffee, sat by the window, and watched people pass by on the street. Couples holding hands, runners splashing through puddles, a mother pulling her child under an umbrella. Life went on, and so would I. I spent the day unpacking, folding clothes into new drawers, placing books on new shelves, choosing which corner would be my rain listening place. Little by little, the apartment became mine, filled with quiet hope, warm lighting, and the soft hum of possibility. When evening came, I took a deep breath, opened my phone again, and finally read the last message Mark had sent. "Please, Claire, let me see you. One more time. One more time." That phrase held weight. Memories, promises, pain, but also closure. And despite everything, I knew I needed closure. Not for him, for myself. The next day, I agreed to meet him at our old apartment. I didn't want to bring the ghost of our marriage into my new home. When I arrived, Mark opened the door with eyes that looked too red, too desperate. He reached for me, but I stepped back just enough to keep my heart safe. "Claire, please, come inside," he whispered. I nodded, but I stayed by the entrance. I didn't want to walk deeper into a place that no longer belonged to me. Mark looked exhausted, his face pale, jaw tight, movements restless. Guilt changes people. It strips them bare. "I don't know what to say," he began. "Then say nothing," I replied softly. He blinked, as if he didn't expect gentleness. "Claire, I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked at him steadily, calm, quiet, clear. "You didn't hurt me," I said. "You hurt us, but you didn't destroy me." His face crumpled slightly. "Do you hate me?" "No," I answered honestly. Hate gives you power over me. I'm letting go. He closed his eyes as if my words were stones dropped into his chest. I want another chance, he whispered. We can fix this. I'll change. I promise. Promises. The currency of betrayal. I shook my head slowly. You already changed, I said. You just didn't change toward me. He winced. A soft, broken sound escaped him. Is there someone else? He asked suddenly. A desperate illusion. No, I said. Just someone I'm finally choosing. Who? He whispered. Me. The silence that followed was heavy. Not cruel, just final. I handed him the divorce papers, not as revenge, but as a bridge cut cleanly, without leaving splinters in my future. Mark stared at them, his hands shaking. I don't want to lose you, he murmured. You already did, I replied gently. His tears came silently, and I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. Not because he cried, but because I didn't. I had cried enough for both of us already. I left the apartment. The door closed behind me like the final line of a story that had gone on too long. Outside, rain began to fall again. Soft, steady, familiar, as if welcoming me back to myself. I walked slowly, letting the drops cool my skin, wash my thoughts, steady my breath. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shattered. I was simply done. Some endings don't come with flames or fury. Some come with rain, and a woman quietly reclaiming her own life. Weeks passed. My new routine grew roots. Coffee by the window, evening walks under city lights, learning to listen to myself again. I started painting, something I hadn't done since college. Canvases filled with rain scenes, muted blues, soft grays, blurred silhouettes. It felt like therapy, like speaking without words. One afternoon, while browsing in a small art supply shop, I met someone unexpected. A man around my age, dark hair, gentle eyes, a quiet smile. He reached for the same set of brushes I was holding. "Oh, sorry," he said with a slightly embarrassed laugh. "You take them." "No, it's fine," I smiled. "Go ahead." He shook his head. "I insist. I'm not even sure I need them. I'm more of a pretends to be artistic type." I laughed softly. The sound surprised me. I hadn't realized how long it had been since laughter felt natural. "I'm Claire," I said. "Daniel," he replied warmly. We talked for a few minutes. Nothing flirty, nothing heavy. Just simple, easy conversation between two strangers who weren't strangers at all. Not in the quiet language of souls who have known rain. Before leaving, he handed me the brush set I had originally reached for. "I think you'll actually use these," he said with that gentle smile, and something inside me warmed. Just a little. Just enough. The next day, I found a small note tucked inside the bag from the art shop. "Nice meeting you. If you ever want company on a rainy walk, here's my number." Daniel. I stared at the note for a long time, smiling without meaning to. Not because I needed someone new, but because the world was reminding me that life wasn't waiting for permission to be beautiful again. I didn't call him right away. I didn't feel rushed. Healing has its own tempo, its own rhythm, its own rain. But I kept the note, and sometimes that's the first bloom of hope. A month later, I received a single message from Mark. Not pleading, not angry, just 5 words. I hope you're doing well. No manipulation, no guilt, just acceptance. And in that moment, I realized something important. My quiet revenge had worked. Not because I hurt him, but because I didn't let him continue hurting me. The most powerful revenge isn't destruction, it's indifference. It's peace. It's a life rebuilt so beautifully that the person who broke you becomes irrelevant. I stepped onto my balcony. Rain had begun again. Soft, rhythmic, familiar. I closed my eyes and let the droplets kiss my face. I wasn't the woman who once begged for transparency. I wasn't the woman who cried over late nights and muted phones. I wasn't the woman who feared being alone. I was someone new, someone whole, someone quietly strong. And the rain whispered, "You made it." The following weeks unfolded like pages turning themselves, quietly, patiently, without asking for permission or attention. I settled into my new life with a tenderness I didn't expect. I thought rebuilding would feel like scraping myself off the ground, like stitching broken things back together. But instead, it felt like opening windows, letting air in, letting light happen. And the rain, always the rain. It became my companion, the soft metronome of my healing. Every evening, I would sit by the glass balcony door with a cup of tea, listening, breathing, existing without pain. It was strange, in a beautiful way, how little I thought about Mark anymore. Not with bitterness, not with longing, just a distant neutrality. Like remembering a book I once read and quietly outgrew. I didn't hate him, and that, somehow, was the biggest sign that I had finally healed. One late afternoon, while walking home from the market, the sky grew heavy with clouds, those thick charcoal ones that carry the promise of a downpour. People around me hurried, opening umbrellas, pulling up hoods, but I didn't rush. Rain never bothered me, especially not now. When the first drops began to fall, soft and cool, I slowed even more, letting them touch my skin like tiny reminders of how far I had come. And then, a familiar voice behind me. "Claire?" I turned. Daniel stood there, holding a folded umbrella, but not opening it. His hair already damp, his eyes warm with surprise. I smiled softly. "Hi, I thought that was you," he said, stepping closer. "You walk like someone who's not afraid of storms." I let out a small laugh. I guess I stopped being afraid of the wrong things. We stood there for a moment, surrounded by bells of rainfall around us. The street lights flickered on early, casting golden halos through the haze. Daniel's expression softened. Would you like to walk together, since we're both already getting soaked? I nodded. Yes, I'd like that. We walked through the rain without hurry, side by side. No expectations, no pressure, no past spilling into the present. Just two people who had found a quiet space between raindrops. After a few minutes, he spoke gently. You seem lighter, he said. Last time we talked, there was something heavy in your eyes. Not sadness, just weight. I think I put the weight down. Finally. He smiled, not wide or intrusive, just a soft acknowledgement. I'm glad, he said quietly. You deserve light things. The words warmed me more than I expected. Not because I needed validation, but because someone noticed my healing, not my hurt. Eventually, we parted ways at the corner near my building. He gave a small wave, droplets clinging to his eyelashes. Rainy walks with you are nice, he said with a playful gentleness. Maybe we could do it again. Maybe we could. I replied. My voice didn't tremble. My heart didn't race. It simply felt open. When I reached my apartment, the rain intensified into a storm. Thunder rolled above the rooftops, the sky cracking like a pulse. And inside, with wet hair and damp clothes, I felt more alive than I had in years. I set down the groceries and stood by the window, watching the world blur, feeling a strange, quiet gratitude for every choice that led me here. Leaving wasn't the destructive ending I once feared. It was the beginning of a softer story, one written at my own pace, with my own hands, and maybe someday someone else's, but only if it felt right, only if it felt safe. For now, the rain was enough. A few days later, I woke to a gentle knock on my door. Not urgent, not impatient. When I opened it, I saw a familiar face, our old neighbor, Mrs. Hale, the elderly woman who lived 2 floors above my previous apartment. She held a small container in her hands. Warm steam curled from the edges. I made too much soup, she said with a sweet, shaky smile, and I remembered how you used to help me carry my groceries. I thought maybe you could use something warm today. I invited her inside, grateful for the unexpected kindness. As she walked in, her gaze drifted around my apartment, absorbing its gentle simplicity. You look peaceful, dear, she said softly. More peaceful than when you lived over there. I nodded, sitting with her at the small kitchen table. I am. She patted my hand with delicate fingers. Life becomes lighter when we choose ourselves. Her words settled into me like drops into soil, absorbing, awakening. I heard about the divorce, she added quietly. I'm sorry you went through that. It's all right, I said truthfully. I'm not sorry anymore. She smiled. That means you healed. Yes, I had. And I was still healing. With every storm that passed, every quiet moment I allowed myself. When she left, I felt a strange mix of nostalgia and relief, like someone had gently touched an old bruise and found no pain beneath it anymore.
Later that afternoon, I received a message from an unknown number. A simple photo of a city park in the rain. No text, just the image. A moment later, another message arrived. Thought of you. D. I smiled. Not in a love-struck way, not in a desperate way. Just a genuine, unhurried happiness. I replied with a photo of my own, the view from my balcony, raindrops racing down the glass. And that was all. Simple, light, easy. The kind of connection that doesn't demand anything, that doesn't take more than I can give. The kind that feels soft on the inside of the chest.
Weeks turned to months. My evenings filled with painting, slow dinners, long, rainy walks, and small conversations with Daniel. Not every day, not intense or overwhelming, just steady, gentle, real. He never asked for more than I could offer. And maybe that was why I slowly began offering more, without fear, without pressure. One evening, as the sky dimmed behind layers of violet clouds, he texted, "Rain tomorrow. Wanna walk?" I typed back before I could second guess myself. Yes, I'd like that. And I realized something beautiful. I wasn't choosing him to replace the past. I was choosing myself. And he just happened to fit softly into the space that healing had created. A few days later, I visited my old neighborhood. Not to see Mark, not to revisit pain, just to close a door gently. I walked past our old building. The windows looked exactly the same, but I didn't. I stood there for a few minutes, listening to the faint hum of rainfall starting up again, and felt nothing but calm. No ache, no longing, no anger. Just quiet acknowledgement that life changes. People change. We change. And sometimes losing someone is the door to finding yourself. I whispered a soft goodbye into the rain. Not to him, but to the version of me who survived there. And then I walked away. Light, steady, free. That evening, when I returned home, the rain intensified, tapping on my windows like tiny fingers inviting me into peace. I lit a candle, sat on the floor with my sketchbook, and watched droplets trace paths across the glass. Painting had become more than a hobby. It was a map of my recovery, a quiet confession a way of turning storm into color. I painted a silhouette of a woman standing in the rain, head tilted up, hands open, not bracing herself, but welcoming the downpour. And for the first time, I recognized her. Not as who I had been, but who I had become. Later that night, Daniel called. Just a simple call. "Are you awake?" he asked softly. "Yes." "Can I tell you something?" His voice carried hesitation, gentleness, something raw. "Of course," I said. "I like the way you exist," he murmured, quietly, thoughtfully, like someone who's lived through storms and still believes in soft things. His words washed over me like warm rain. I didn't respond right away. Not out of fear, but because I wanted to feel them fully. Let them settle. "Thank you," I whispered finally. "That means more than you know." We stayed on the phone for a while, listening to the rain through our separate windows. Two people connected by the same weather, the same quiet, the same gentle unfolding. Nothing dramatic, nothing rushed, just two hearts breathing in sync with the storm. As I lay in bed later, the sound of rain steady and soothing, I realized something profound. Healing didn't happen in a single moment. It wasn't the day I left Mark, or the day I met Daniel, or the day I looked in the mirror and finally recognized myself again. Healing was all the moments in between, the little choices, the quiet courage, the soft steps forward. The rain had been with me through all of it, not as a metaphor, but as a companion. And as sleep pulled me gently under, I understood the truth that had taken so long to reach me. I wasn't broken. I wasn't lost. I wasn't alone. I was growing, becoming, unfolding. And tomorrow, when the rain returned, I would walk into it without fear. Because now I knew some storms don't come to destroy you. Some come to wash you clean.
Sometimes pain doesn't come from enemies, but from the ones we trusted the most. Maybe that's how life teaches us to see the truth. Could you forgive such a betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, stories that will touch your heart.